Hi, I'm Sarah Hackett, the Director of the Wisconsin Resource Center for Charter Schools, and I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about making expense decisions for your charter school. Specifically, this video is meant for schools who have a DPI charter school subgrant right now or are planning to have one, but it could potentially be useful for any schools who are just rethinking their budgets. So the first item of wisdom that I have to share for you is to start with WWOOFR, because that's how school budgets tend to be organized and broken down, and it's a really helpful way to think about your categories. So what I would first do is look at all your revenue, and then when you're going to your expense tab in your budget worksheet, you want to start breaking it down by all these WWOOFR categories, so you can go ahead and just put them right in your budget. And start looking at all these different categories. Now, one of the things that you'll likely do is think about your staff salaries and benefits as a major expense, your rent, for your facility, and then also your equipment, like your supplies. So those are three things I'm not going to talk about in this video, because I know that those are things kind of non-negotiables that you already are budgeting for. So this video is really going to go over some of the less obvious expenses that we really want to encourage you to make space for. So one of the WWOOFR codes that I want to mention is the personal and contracted services. So think about how you are going to pay your staff outside of their contracted service hours, and how you're going to pay outside consultants to come in and help your staff build their capacity, get professional development, embedded coaching, and just other services that your staff are not going to be providing, like physical therapy, special ed support, school psych, all sorts of different services, financial services, things like that, that you aren't doing. And really, you can invest some of your dollars in people to make sure that the work gets done. So whether it's your people in their outside of contract hours or other people who are going to come in and help you fulfill some of that work. Another category I want to mention is the staff travel. So we really encourage you, for the staff you do have, to allow them to go and get professional development, to go see other schools, and not just your teaching staff, but your leadership, your board, your, sort of all your support staff, and even some of your consultants. You really want to make sure that they all have that opportunity for professional development. Another category I want to bring up is technology services. So we really want to encourage you to think about all those different systems and how they work together. You're going to have a learning management system, student information system, a special ed management system, and then potentially virtual coursework or supplementary materials. So think about kind of what those are. How do they go together? Really ask the questions to make sure that they're all high quality and that there's no redundancies, and you're not missing any part of that sort of system that you need to build with your tech tools. Another thing I want to bring up are the insurances, especially for independently authorized charter schools. This is something that you need to really take into consideration. If you're a district authorized charter school, you want to work with your district and see how these expenses are being handled in your contract and in your budget with the district. So think about, including funds in each of those areas to make sure that there's no expenses that sneak up on you later as the year goes on. And then the final category that I want to bring up are payments specifically to governmental or CISA agencies. So that could be if you're paying back your local school district for services, if you're paying a local university or tech college for services, or if you're paying a CISA. And so this could be a one-time thing or an ongoing thing, contracting for different services like facility, transportation, food, but it also could be sub costs back to your school district. It could be expert services such as assessment services, special ed director services, financial or business office services. So lots of different things going into that category. And I'd really encourage you to think about how you could take advantage of the CISA and other experts to really fulfill a lot of that work, so that you're investing in your people and you're investing and supporting your school through people rather than just like stuff. So then I want to go just back through those one more time and talk specifically about the grant. So you'll notice along the way, sorry for the quick scroll, I did make these notes here for you to keep in mind if you're a charter school subgrantee. So for contracted services, you'll want to think about which things are allowable. So your salaries for your staff are not an allowable expense under the grant, but contracted services are. So whether it's for coaches or for your own people in the outside of contract hours, that those are allowable expenses. And we really recommend that you think about capacity building for your people through these contracts. So that could be a really great use of grant funds. For staff travel, absolutely, those are reimbursable, except just think really carefully about the food because those tend to be trickier. For technology, any ongoing costs are not allowable, but the one-time startup and capacity building expenses are allowable under the grant generally. So just think about how you're making those purchases, and some of it could be allowable and some of it won't be. So just we encourage you to break those down. Same with insurance. It's really would only be allowable if there's any kind of startup fees associated. The ongoing expenses would not be. And then for payments, it's similar to up at the 310, the contracted services. Any ongoing services would not be allowable, but if it's capacity building, if it's professional development, or that job embedded coaching, which is short-term ongoing, but it's meant for capacity building, I think would be allowable. So these are all things to run by DPI's charter school grant coordinator, but do make sure that you think ahead as to which things could be grouped as allowable for the grant and which not. So the way that WWOOFR works is that you can make subcategories of these categories. So you can have intergovernmental payments for services that are allowable under the grant, and then the ones that are not coming out of the grant. So you kind of break it down right within your budget structure. All right, now I'm going to come down into the nitty gritty a little bit more beyond those categories and just think about what is some of the stuff in those categories that people are contracting out for. So you can really think in the micro for some of those expenses. So as you're breaking it down, you might think about money that's going towards authorizing, governance board, leaders in classroom for sure. And then think about all the different things that they're going to need within each of those categories. So I'm going to go down to classroom specifically and just look at that. These are all things that we recommend and have worked with schools supporting them in developing those contracts. And so you might be setting up structures for your curriculum, for your project-based learning, or for different kinds of assessment that you want to do. You might be rebuilding a design for school culture, or you may be rewriting your curriculum entirely. Those are all things that Works or Works Partners could help you with. But additionally, there's other contracts that you're going to be setting up, like visiting teaching artists or technology services and subscriptions. And so there's contracts to be developed in all these different areas of the charter school at all different times of development. So I just wanted to point out that building that space for contracting is really important. And so we did actually develop a whole document that's just how do I find vendors? Like what questions do you ask? What things do you want to have in place before you go and find those vendors, and make sure that you're really just thinking carefully about your whole budget, including not just purchases of stuff, not just hiring of staff, but also in making all of those service contracts and purchasing contracts. So I hope you found this helpful. We've got lots of other resources. Please reach out at any time. We've got our website on the bottom here. There's a button on our homepage to request personalized support, and do just reach out anytime if you have questions about this document or anything else. Thanks.